I know the mind games would be so powerful, but as we get into it, there's one and there's two. We got two Smeargles staring at each other right now.
All right, literally staring each other down, both on the exact same side of the field as well. Victor has normally gone with Shadow Rider as a lead, but instead opts for the Zamazenta here, which of course applies a lot of pressure with that body press, also has that wide guard ability, right? And so you see the Incineroar in the back immediately contemplating switching in here. That, of course, will allow you to take a potential Spore. You have to be a little bit careful, though, because your Zamazenta then is potentially vulnerable to eating up a Spore, but of course you could just protect, as you can see Victor is debating about. And so I think Incineroar is such a key Pokemon in this matchup because it's also this non-clear Amulet Calyrex set. It's really nice to just be able to intimidate it. Then all you can really do is click Leech Seed. And Leech Seed is nice, but then like you're just not getting that much value. And so a relatively safe turn one here for Victor as he's like, look, Incineroar is the perfect switch in right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I think, especially with the Protect, you make sure that you're also not going to get fake outed. We see the Intimidate go through, as you had called out, but we're also going to see a Terrestrialization. And so that's going to be Hirofumi that's going to invest that right away onto this Calyrex Ice Rider, giving it that Fairy Terra. And where do you think we go from here?
Yeah, Fairy Terra, I think, nice just for defensive capabilities because now it means you can switch out the Ice Rider and can switch back in if Shadow Rider hits the field. And so a little bit preemptive here, and as the Spore does manage to come out. But yeah, this is why I was saying Incineroar is such an important Pokemon for both players in this matchup.
And Hirofumi also tries to follow that up with just a little bit of damage. Because it's a bit bulkier, I do wonder how much this is actually going to do. And of course, it's a little hard to tell thanks to that defensive typing on the Incineroar, but ooh, okay, Smeargle's getting its Moody boosts.
Not a speed boost critically. I think speed would be really scary because then you could Spore into the Zamazenta slot. Now you do have the Fake Out available, but this is where the Spiky Shield on Smeargle is such a big deal, right? If against the normal Smeargle sets, you can just go Fake Out Body Press, knock out that slot. Okay, let's keep it going. But now Smeargle has the ability to go for that Spiky Shield, and so you can see Victor thinking, well, I feel like surely you're going to Spiky Shield, right? You've got it. So I could, of course, fake out the Calyrex and go for a Heavy Slam onto it as well. But it ends up just being a split in damage. But this is really scary. Now Smeargle could get a Spore off into the Zamazenta slot.
Absolutely. I mean, the Body Press is certainly going to help. At least you're bringing it down to the Focus Sash. But the problem is that it is still around. And that Spore lands right into the Zamazenta. So that's all the Zamazenta is going to be able to do for the next while.
Yeah, and this is what makes that Spiky Shield such a good option. Even if you're not clicking it, your opponents have to respect it, right? So I think the upside for Victor right now is there's not any damage coming out from the opposing side, right? It's another special defense boost, not a speed boost. That's the one that you're going to generally want to pay attention to. But now Hirofumi ideally wants to angle for some positioning, right? Get something really powerful out on the field. Koraidon, of course, would be an excellent Pokemon. Landers would also be valuable if he had it in the back. The Calyrex Ice Rider wants to start getting these Leech Seeds off as well.
And it will be a lot easier to do because you really want to keep your Zamazenta in order to actually get through those sleep turns. Yeah. You don't want to take it out. And so Leech Seed feels like you're almost more often than not going to be able to get a couple of good turns out of it. On this one, though, Zamazenta will take its first turn of sleep, and this Smeargle is going to take advantage of that. The Ruination brings in Zamazenta already down to half HP, thanks to what that move is capable of, as Incineroar goes for the parting shot and allows Victor to get a pivot.
I mean, you can see the genius of Ruination here, right? Because basically, normally, Smeargle just wouldn't be able to offer any offense. Kind of feel forced to switch it out. Instead, now you can go for Ruination and Leech Seed, and suddenly you've stolen a lot of Zamazenta's HP. Shadow Rider does manage to come out into a good position. Leech Seed crucially also connects on Zamazenta, but when you see Smeargle Ice Rider, normally you're like, Zamazenta's the perfect counter for it, but the Ruination plus the Leech Seed means it's ending the turn with less than 50% of its health, and it's only taken one turn of sleep.
It is possible that it wakes up on this next turn, and it looks like it could be a little bit close, but oh my goodness, I was holding my breath. But this Smeargle is going to be on 1 HP in a dream and +6 special defense.
Unfortunately, not enough to save it, I think, from this incoming Psychic, but I think Hirofumi right now is playing just a really nice defensive game, right? And Zamazenta just feels really sad where it hasn't really gotten that much value. Shadow Rider still feels like the main star for Victor's team, and if you're able to clear that Smeargle, suddenly Astro Barrage obviously becomes significantly stronger. I would maybe think Hirofumi would have an Incineroar in the back, which of course can deal with the Shadow Rider a little bit better. But yeah, I think this like early Terra on the Ice Rider is just really hard to do a lot of damage onto it. And damaging it for 40% is not going to do anything in this kind of matchup because you have leftovers and you have leech seed, so suddenly you just heal all that damage back up, right? So Victor is looking to actually get a knockout, probably wants a special attack boost, whether it be from its ability or from a nasty plot. Feels so bad to switch out a boosted Zamazenta like that, but it just feels like otherwise it's going to stay on the field for forever and do nothing.
So that's why you at least have the Incineroar to come in and drop this Calorex's attack one more time, and hopefully we will be able to see Calyrex start to get some damage down, but yeah, if it's Incineroar, I mean, that would be crazy. But to your point about the leftovers, the Leech Seed recovery, you've got Rillaboom now that's going to add in the grassy terrain as another avenue to get some HP recovery.
Big turn here. I think there was the ability for a potential nasty plot here. That Psychic, by the way, does so much damage. Oh my goodness. But Trick Room is set up. However, Victor has gotten the Incineroar out on the field, so you have the ability, of course, to go for a fake out with that. Honestly shocked at how much life orb Psychic did to an Assault Vest Pokemon there. So, makes sense. I think Victor wants to respect Smeargle potentially going for a Spore in that position, right? So, Calyrex is doing basically no damage right now. He can continue to Leech Seed. I think Victor has gotten himself into a better position now that Trick Room has been set up. You have the faster Fake Out, so as you see, you can pressure with just Fake Out plus Astral Barrage.
And that's still going to do a significant amount to this Terra Fairy Ice Rider Calyrex. And at some point, you really do have to start laying some damage down onto that Pokemon. Otherwise, you're going to see Hirofumi start to outpace and get those damage trades just a little bit more positively. So I'm curious to see how this next turn is going to go, because Hirofumi, at this point with the Trick Room set up, has the speed control.
Yeah, I think Hirofumi basically, his Ice Rider is like, it's nice, but it's not doing any damage, really. It can Leech Seed. So I think what Victor is going to try to do in these next few turns is keep targeting around the Ice Rider and then focus it in the very end, right? So Fake Out plus Astral Barrage was super safe here, covers for anything. Koraidon presumably is the final Pokemon. You basically can get a knockout either onto a Rillaboom or the Smeargle that switches in. Glacial Lance comes out, but this is a -3 Glacial Lance, and Calyrex basically takes nothing from that. And so now it's another single target Astral Barrage onto an Ice Rider as well, and that's going to do a really meaningful amount of damage.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like 65% to me. And so even though we are going to see leftovers, grassy terrain, you're actually not getting up to the point where Calyrex is going to be really healthy. That's 50% now that it's able to stay at. And Hirofumi, maybe like a positive for him is that because this Smeargle got knocked out, you're able to get the Rillaboom in and ensure that you have a Fake Out for this next turn.
Oh,
but it's Landorus as the final
here.
one.
Interesting. Okay. So I think it makes sense because Landorus, like if you look at Victor's team, like ground type damage is already just so powerful, and you also have the Sludge Bomb on Landorus so that could deal with Rillaboom, but I was thinking Koraidon actually would have been a pretty nice Pokemon to bring in here. I think actually Landorus also not bad because you can pressure with Sandslayer Storm plus a Glacial Lance, and so you can see Victor's like, okay, I know you're going to outpace my Calyrex right now under Trick Room. I'm just going to protect. I'm going to decrease your damage output. I don't have to worry about your Ice Rider that much, and Incineroar should be faster than Landorus under the Trick Room, and so I think Victor actually is not in a bad spot because Hirofumi set up that Trick Room. It's kind of actually working against him right now.
Really is. I mean, a double protect here from Hirofumi to try to stall out one turn of his own Trick Room here, but also, of course, to be able to bypass some of this extra damage. So a really moot turn here, but I think Victor is still continuing to get some better opportunities from this.
Yeah, my main question this next turn is, like, now that you've baited out the Protect from Shadow Rider, you can obviously double up into it with the Glacial Lance plus an Earth Power. The key question is, Incineroar is going to be able to get that parting shot off onto Landorus before the Earth Power comes out. So can Shadow Rider actually survive? And it looks like Victor doesn't think that will be the case. And so you see he's making a nice defensive play here, actually going for that Water Terra, so potentially covering for a Sandslayer Storm in this position, right? And so, yeah, it's like Calyrex is just not the bulkiest Pokemon to begin with, right? So even with the parting shot, Victor's like, I don't think I can actually survive a double up here. Why don't I sacrifice the Zamazenta? My goal now is to actually stall out your Trick Room, then get Shadow Rider out, because I've already eliminated Smeargle. So if I get Shadow Rider out after Trick Room ends, I can just click Astral Barrage freely. Yeah,
no more immunities. Zamazenta is going to come in and almost act as a sacrificial piece here because it's really not going to be doing much else. Here, also, of course, you have to see that terrestrialization that Victor locked into for that Terra Water on the Incineroar. I love this play as well because you know that even if the Ice Rider Calyrex does manage to switch out and set those drops, it's still going to be a little bit hard, but a Leech Seed call out here into the Zamazenta, so all of a sudden, even though this Ice Rider Calyrex is not doing very much damage, it is going to be close to full HP by the end of this turn, but the Life Orb knockoff is good, and look at how much better this Incineroar is going to take that. Still looks like it's going to be another Earth Power and this Incineroar knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. I think Crucial Terra on the Incineroar there. I think the Terra makes a lot of sense because at this point in the game, there's nothing else to really Terra, right? Shadow Rider is Dark Terra. That doesn't help you defensively in this one. Really nice Leech Seed, though, just to continue healing up with the Ice Rider, right? Intimidate is the way you shut down this Ice Rider's damage output, but being able to just steal HP turn after turn after turn is a big deal because by the time Shadow Rider hits the field once again, Ice Rider's going to be back at full HP. Then it can pressure to even set up a subsequent Trick Room, right? And so right now what Victor's trying to do is stall out the Trick Room, then get Shadow Rider position, and Hirofumi's like, well, that's fine because I can just do enough damage right now under Trick Room and then potentially even set up a second one.
That would be crazy, especially if the Shadow Rider Calyrex finds itself into a position where it's under Trick Room again. That's a nightmare situation there for Victor. And Hirofumi says, okay, well, I mean, thank you for all of that HP.
Yeah,
my Calyrex is,
I'm good.
Yeah, gonna go back there and we'll see you later. As the Rillaboom now takes the field in its place, Landorus just goes for a Protect. We will get through this final round of Trick Room.
Nice parting shot here to be able to pivot out with the Incineroar there. Landorus, I think, had the ability to go for damage this turn, actually opts not to, and so now Victor will be able to get a free switch, and I think one of the things is that the Smeargle coming into the late game is also incredibly scary because Victor then can Spore with it, right? I think Victor is aiming for this end game where you've got Shadow Rider, you've got Smeargle to support it as well. He still has all his Pokemon, right? So I think he's managed himself into a really solid spot, and Zamazenta manages to wake up as well. Goes for the Heavy Slam into Landorus. Landorus was really worried about a double up potentially into that slot, so opts to Protect, but great pivoting from Victor. He's distributed damage really well so far in this game with Astral Barrage, and now that Ice Rider is off on the field, Rillaboom's able to heal back a little bit more, but Zamazenta waking up means it is going to be able to pressure with damage, and Instant plus Smeargle just provides so much support in this endgame.
But I'm even looking at the fact that even if Zamazenta doesn't go for damage, now you have the support with the Wide Guard.
Yep.
If you look at Landorus, it really forces you in that position. Instead of going for Sandseer Storm, you have to go for single target, either the Sludge Bomb onto the Calyrex or the Earth Power onto the Zamazenta.
Yeah, absolutely. And crucially also, it's just like no more grassy terrain anymore, right? So like, how are you stopping Life Orb Astral Barrage from just sweeping everything, right? Victor timed this perfectly, and so Landorus switches out, but I mean, like, the hope here is, okay, if my Rillaboom manages to survive the turn and then maybe gets a U-turn and Woodhammer up, but I think Victor is really just in a very strong position right now, and this, like, Calyrex has just been able to get Astral Barrage after Astral Barrage off, and so here is another one coming out. We saw how much Psychic did to the Rillaboom here. That almost just gets the knockout.
It doesn't, though. We are going to see that Rillaboom hang on for just a sliver of HP, but that is just to allow the Zamazenta to finish the job. I was kind of wondering if in that situation the Rillaboom survives, maybe you're still able to get a less powered Woodhammer off into the Shadow Rider Calyrex, and maybe you're able to finish it off from there. But it's looking a little tough here. Hirofumi has to bring in this Landorus again and is down to his final two Pokemon in this game.
Yeah, and this Calyrex was just able to get so many Astral Barrages off. Hirofumi managed to set up that Trick Room, but to me, like, this game really started going downhill when the Incineroar actually switched in, able to have a faster fake out under Trick Room. There was never just that much damage, right? It was just Ruination and Leech Seed and maybe like 1 or 2 Earth Powers coming out, but Victor stalled out Trick Room really, really effectively. And so I was a little bit surprised to not see the Koraidon come out in this one. Koraidon has so much good damage across the board, right? It actually has one-hit KO potential onto almost basically everything. And so I think for Hirofumi, he's probably going to start thinking about that Koraidon going into game 2. That last turn, by the way, super safe to just go for Astral plus the Heavy Slam into the Rillaboom slot. You know you'll likely knock out the Landorus anyway. And so Landorus tries to protect here. I think last-ditch effort to maybe try to get a Trick Room up here with the Ice Rider, but it's just not going to be enough.
I mean, the Astral Barrage is still going to be doing a ton of damage here to this Ice Rider Calyrex. And then on the next turn, you've got the Incineroar to go in for a fake out. Actually, just gets knocked out from that critical hit as well.
Yeah, and this was just dominant by Victor. I mean, the early game looked a little bit awkward, right? Where, like, Victor got spored and the Zamazenta was forced to switch out. But the thing is, Zamazenta isn't meant to be the star in this kind of matchup. I think Shadow Rider position probably can be incredible. The main thing is you have to get rid of that Smeargle. Smeargle, when it's out on the field, is so awkward for Shadow Rider to deal with because you have to play the guessing game. Oh, like, is it going to Spiky Shield? If your Shadow Rider gets spored by the Smeargle, it's a complete disaster. But basically, Victor never opened that possibility up. And this is where Hirofumi's lack of, like, burst damage really came into play. But if you want some burst damage, you've got a Pokemon on your team, and its name is Koraidon.
I feel like that has to be the adjustment. I don't know if you can continue to go for that slow Trick Room game plan.
Yeah.
Because I also think that Victor's Pokemon are much bulkier than even I was anticipating heading into this matchup. Outside of something like the Calyrex Shadow Rider, everything else actually has pretty good sustainability.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the main thing is Smeargle plus Ice Rider is just not going to deal that much damage. It's great if games are long and drawn out and like it's end games where you can't switch out of the Leech Seed, but being able to pivot out is really, really tough. And Calyrex just got way too many Astral Barrages off for free in that game. And so going into this next game, I think the adjustment that Hirofumi needs to consider is how do I make sure that Calyrex doesn't just get to click Astral Barrage at no punishment, right? And I wonder if part of it is he was maybe expecting the Shadow Rider to be led because it seems like Victor spent so much of his strategies doing that. And he adapted very nicely. It was a Zamazenta lead, which we have not seen from him nearly as much. And so I think that was a really great mix-up. But Shadow Rider seemed like an absolute star in that game. And for Hirofumi, yeah, I'm definitely looking at that Koraidon because I think it just offers you so much more burst damage.
It's also hard when I actually look at how many different immunities Hirofumi has to Fake Out, and there's none. Instead of just protecting in front of it, you don't have any ghost types, you don't have any ghost terrestrializations. So since Victor has 3 opportunities to go for Fake Out, you're always going to be able to protect the Shadow Rider Calyrex from the big damage threats, one of which is going to be an adjustment that Hirofumi makes in the second game as we see the Koraidon hit the field next to the Smeargle, and Victor decides that it's time for the Shadow Rider Calyrex to really shine.
It's an interesting turn 1 because like there's a lot of offense from both ends, right? You see Victor thinking about playing it a little bit more safe and going for that protect. We know that the Smeargle on the opposing side does not have that Fake Out, and so can't just go for like Fake Out instant, Fire Terror, Flare Blitz. So it's actually going to be potential Fake Out into the Smeargle. Of course, the Smeargle then could go for a Spiky Shield, and then you could just get the knockout onto Incineroar, right? And basically try to eliminate that immediately. I think if you are Victor, you have to be worried about getting spored onto the Calyrex. That was one of the main win conditions I was talking about. So you don't want to give any possibility towards that. And one of the ways to try to get around that is just making sure that Smeargle does not get a move off on turn 1 with Fake Out.
Yeah, and no, you already know that we will have the opportunity for Fake Out into the Smeargle because it doesn't have actual... Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't have Fake Out, and it also doesn't protect here. So Incineroar is able to break that Focus Sash from just the Fake Out itself, and Hirofumi, what is this Koraidon actually? Yeah, it doesn't do anything. The speed boost, though, is huge. Oh, it finally happened.
It finally happened. Speed boost means now, of course, you have the ability to go for that Spore into the Shadow Rider slot. That's really, really scary because Calyrex just protected, and so you can see Victor being like, okay, I know this is my star player. I'm going to pivot out. I actually really love the play he's going for here, though, because by switching out, you know that something will fall asleep. A Water Terra here means that you will survive against the Koraidon, and so you're baiting Spore. You're saying, look, I'm going to let something fall asleep. A Water Terra here is safe. I'm just going to knock out your Smeargle. That means no more Spore and a Shadow Rider, and that's one of your main win conditions out of the way.
And Victor was totally okay to let this Zamazenta go to sleep in that first game.
Totally.
Allowed it to take a Ruination, plus that Spore, even the Leech Seeds, and recognize that Zamazenta can still be that bulky tank for the team outside of being able to just do damage and also have access to Wide Guard. So Victor putting a lot of pressure on this particular Incineroar to try to get the job done, as we do see the Smeargle go for the Spore into the Zamazenta. But if Victor can get away with this, then you will be able to knock out the Smeargle. And we even see a Flame Charge actually come out of the Koraidon. And it's a one-hit knockout from the critical hit, and even in the sun.
Wow, I'm actually not sure you want that, just because having a Zamazenta out on the field that hasn't taken any turns of sleep is basically a completely useless slot for Victor. Instead, now you do give a free switch it to Victor's end. I like the Flame Charge play a lot. I was actually going to suggest it on turn 1 because once you get that speed boost, you outpace the Shadow Rider, which means you can just threaten it with a one-hit knockout, right? And so Smeargle now potentially coming out from Victor's end. And the Water Terra makes a lot of sense. It's just a really good neutral defensive Terra here, right? But I love the adjustment to Koraidon. This is exactly what we were talking about coming out of Game 1. And now you have so much more offense with this duo than you previously had. And so now the scary thing is Smeargle, of course, does have the ability to put something to sleep. And so the Spore is going to be scary. One of the things that I want to pay attention to is the speed interaction between the Landorus and the Smeargle.
Yeah, well, I feel like most of the time, I wonder if like the Landorus actually is a little bit slower when you have Trick Room available.
It's interesting, yeah, because like Landorus is a very fast Pokemon, and like if you were just running max speed investment or close to it, then you would be outspeeding the Smeargle. But to your point, there is an Ice Rider, there's Trick Room here. It could be super bulky Landorus that's slower as well, and so Smeargle with that Focus Sash means it has the ability to go for a Spore, and it's going to be a switch immediately out into the Incineroar, so maybe trying to bait a Spore into that slot. I do think this is the absolute correct decision, by the way, to drop the Ice Rider and switch to Koraidon instead, right? It just offers so much more offense, and so Koraidon going for this Protect, I think this is so smart, because now you can double up onto Smeargle next turn. There was really such minimal way to punish this.
I was going to say, unless Victor had decided to double up, you know, I was going to say knock off into the Landorus, but of course, because the Smeargle is faster, you don't actually get that combination of things to happen.
Oh, and a speed drop, actually.
No. Okay, that's the reverse of what a Smeargle would like to see.
This is looking like a win for Hirofumi already, honestly. Like, you can just double up onto Smeargle now with Fake Out plus Flame Charge and get a knockout onto that slot, right? And so the Clear Amulet is such a big item here for the Koraidon. The Incineroar just feels so sad. What is it going to do, right? At this point, it's just opting to target the opposing Incineroar, and so we're going to see Smeargle faint here. Opting for Flare Blitz here, saying, okay, well, this means if you switch into the Shadow Rider in case you're super bulky, I like guarantee the knockout onto the slot. Yeah, I take a little bit of recoil damage, but I don't need a speed boost anymore.
Hirofumi at this point can leave that Incineroar all by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, get rid of the Shadow Rider.
Congrats on water terroring. Like, I don't care, you know? Like, I'm going to win the 1v1 against you anyway. And so this is a completely different match from the last one, and I think it makes so much sense. This was exactly the offense Hirofumi was lacking.
So with the Koraidon coming into play, and also being faster than the Shadow Rider Calyrex after that one Flame Charge, if you're Victor going into a game number 3, what are you looking at in order to answer this particular Pokemon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to pause you a little bit here because I'm trying to think, is there a way for Victor to actually win the game right now still? It's scary, but Sun at least is about to expire, and you have Fake Out available to you this turn. That being said, it's still actually quite scary because then you have to deal with Incineroar, and like, how's Calyrex dealing with Incineroar, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't want to call the game yet, but I do feel like it looks so difficult. And so we'll have to see how this sprint plays out. I think it makes sense to try to Fake Out and maybe get a nasty plot off. As you can see, yeah, like that's the only comeback potential, but even then it's scary. And there's no Protect from the Koraidon either. So you can see Victor's like, my one way of winning is hoping for you to protect the Koraidon. Hirofumi does not give it to him. Flare Blitz comes out, and bye-bye Calyrex.
That is going to be the final restrictive move here for Victor, leaving this Incineroar all by itself. And Hirofumi now, that one Pokemon away from tying up the series to bring us to that game number 3.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Rose, let's go back to your question. So you were saying Koraidon's hit the field now. Smeargle Koraidon is a lead. Exactly. Now what? It's a great question. I think if anything, Victor may have led that Zamazenta in game 1 partially to deal with Koraidon. You do have the Water Terra available on it. And if you look at the Terra types on Victor's end in this matchup, like Shadow Rider, I think just has like very little reason to Terra. Incineroar is a decent Terra, right? Because it allows you to survive for a little bit longer, but it didn't have any value in that last game. And so I'm thinking maybe you make an adjustment back to that Zamazenta. Part of the strength in that game, of course, was Smeargle being able to get that speed boost off, pressure with that Spore as well. And so you might also be like, okay, well, if you don't get the speed boost there, the game looks a little bit different. But this is what I mean. Like, I think Smeargle is just such an annoying Pokemon to deal with. And yeah, I think it makes sense to maybe shift back to the Zamazenta and then go for a Water Terra with it specifically to deal with Hirofumi's Koraidon, because Koraidon actually has a really terrible time into Water Terra Zamazenta.
If I had a nickel for every time Smeargle was annoying, do you know how many nickels I would have?
You would be retired, you know,
I would be
like,
rich.
yeah, you would be good.
But as we enter into this game number 3, I think that's a very valuable point to make. If that Smeargle has literally any other Moody boost, I don't know, maybe Victor does win in that situation.
Totally, yeah. And it's like, I think part of it, though, was Koraidon now seeing like, okay, not only do you have to deal with Smeargle, but as soon as you get a Flame Charge boost with the Koraidon, it becomes infinitely larger of a threat. And so that's what's scary, because it's like, not only do you have to deal with Spore, I also do have to deal with Fire Terra, Flare Blitz. And so I think something like going back to Smeargle Zamazenta would be maybe a little bit stronger, because you pressure with Fake Out and you can Water Terra immediately. But here we go, running it back with Smeargle Koraidon, and Victor is going to go with Smeargle and Zamazenta.
Okay, so maybe a bit of a better matchup for this Zamazenta into the Koraidon, and now it comes down to what these Smeargles are capable of. So, woo, let's see it. Ooh, that's very aggressive.
Going for an immediate Spore here. So I'm nervous here mainly because if the Smeargle speed tie, you're both clicking Spore on turn 1. Whoever gets the Spore off is going to have such a major advantage. This is the adjustment I was talking about, the Water Terror your Zamazenta immediately. That means that at least one slot can hold itself up against the Koraidon.
Terrestrialization first, though, and so, yeah, Zamazenta is going to he's feeling so much better, but the sun is still active. And we've seen how these powerful Pokemon can turn the sun and really make it into a big advantage, even versus some of these matchups. But it's the Flame Charge into the Smeargle first.
Smeargle moves first.
Oh, it's going to be a tough call, but the Zamazenta is going to have to move before we see these Smeargles. And it looks like it's going to be Hirofumi's. Victor's Smeargle gets put to sleep.
An absolutely huge turn there. This is what I was saying. Like, Smeargle versus Smeargle, you're often both going to be maximum speed, and it is a big deal because you do get a ton of damage off into the Crydon. Crucially, no speed boost there on Smeargle. Speed boost would have been a disaster because then, yeah, you can just knock out Smeargle with another Flame Charge and then Spore the Zamazenta. So this turn is interesting. You could theoretically actually go for a Protect with your Crydon and then Spore into the Smeargle slot. The Smeargle, of course, has Follow Me, so it can redirect a Body Press away as well as you go for another Flame Charge. So Body Press at least did do a lot of damage, but it was absolutely huge for Hirofumi to win the potential speed tie there on turn 1.
I think Victor is trying to make a call, though. Do you think that the Zamazenta is going to protect itself? And if it does, then you really want to make sure you're landing that damage down in the Smeargle before both of your Pokemon do get put to sleep. But Hirofumi's Smeargle has its Focus Sash intact. I think you're always going to be able to get a second Spore off.
Yeah, I think, like, if you're Hirofumi, you could just go for Follow Me, Flame Charge, basically guarantee a knockout and say Crydon sticks around for another turn. It ends up just being Flare Blitz here, actually not going for Follow Me. Flare Blitz, of course, covers for Shadow Rider once again switching in, and so you can just potentially knock that out. But I think this is huge for Hirofumi because with the Body Press not going into Crydon, you get to stick around for another turn. And let's see this Moody Boost. I mean, if it's a Speed Boost, it's just going to be an absolute disaster right now.
It is going to be a special attack boost. So at least we're safe.
We're safe
for one more turn.
Yep. But I think, yeah, you have to bring an Incineroar here. If you bring out Calyrex, well, one thing you could do with Calyrex is if you bring out Calyrex, you could protect it, and then Body Press into Smeargle, and then the second turn switch out into Incineroar and basically bait 2 different attacks into it. Victor's like, you know what, I'm just going to bring in the Incineroar. This gives me the Fake Out pressure immediately, so now you have Fake Out plus Body Press available to you. But one of the things you can do when you have Fake Out pressure available is bait out your opponents into protecting, right? And so you can see Victor's hoping right now Hirofumi protects that Crydon and Smeargle. You bring out Shadow Rider, then Shadow Rider can just Astral Barrage into the Crydon slot the subsequent turn. Smeargle here does not have Wide Guard on Hirofumi's end. And so this is a classic bait and switch with Fake Out. We'll see if it works out, though, because by going for this, you do open yourself up to the opportunity of Hirofumi just attacking this turn.
Yeah, I mean, we will see the Shadow Rider Calyrex at least be able to get a bit of damage down in 2 turns, but it does really depend on what this Crydon decides to do. So we'll see the switch first and what is to follow. If Hirofumi is able to call this right and you just get rid of this Calyrex immediately,
you would just win on the spot,
yeah, the game
honestly.
is over.
Yeah, but it's a tough call, yeah, and it makes so much sense to just go for the safe protects. I'm getting nervous for Victor.
Is there a Spore, though?
Let's see, yeah.
Because, it's just a Spiky Shield.
Yeah.
But if there was a Spore, like, also critical.
Totally, yeah. I think for Hirofumi, it makes sense for him to not want to take that risk because he knows he's actually ahead in this game anyway. And so now let's see, is there another speed boost here on Smeargle? No speed boost. Okay, I'm getting nervous for Victor because every turn Smeargle's on the field, that's another possible chance to get that speed boost, right?
It's a speed drop, so.
Yeah, exactly. So this is still scary, though, because of the Crydon getting that Flame Charge early, right? And so you can see what Victor's trying to do is bait out the attack into Calyrex, protect there, Body Press, bring the Smeargle down low. But the Smeargle here is just, once again, such a nuisance. You have access to that Follow Me, so you can redirect that Body Press away from the Crydon. And I think what Hirofumi's trying to do is, I'm just going to ignore your Zamazenta for now. I'm going to target down what's next to it. And Victor is like, okay, I'm going to try to play a little bit defensively, then I make sure you don't get to just knock that slot out freely.
Calyrex protecting. We already saw the Zamazenta trying to target down this Crydon so it can finally knock it out. And that's one call correct here for Victor. This Flare Blitz from the Crydon does get negated by that Protect as the Body Press is able to finally finish off this Crydon. 1 KO apiece here in this third and final game of this top 8 set. But this Smeargle gets a chance to go for the Spore, and it keeps its Focus Sash intact still.
Finally gets the Spore off. I think one of the key trade-offs that Hirofumi had to decide, once again, no speed boost, but one of the key decisions is, do you go for Follow Me? Because if so, you protect your Smeargle or you protect your Crydon for a turn, but then Victor can just switch the Shadow Rider back out into Incineroar. Do you want to play that prediction war? Here, Hirofumi is saying, look, if you don't protect your Shadow Rider, I knock you out immediately. Even if you go for the Protect, I guarantee the sleep on the Zamazenta. And to your point, a fully healthy Smeargle. I think what's a little bit scary now for Hirofumi is you don't have a way to get a one-hit knockout onto the Shadow Rider, so you do have to be a little bit careful, but Smeargle's still sitting at full HP. Landorus here, I think, should be able to take a Life Orb Psychic or Astral Barrage. You can even protect Landorus, go for a Spore. And the Zamazenta right now, I think one of the key things I'm paying attention to, is it able to wake up quickly enough?
Was able to get a one-turn wake-up in that game number 2, so maybe this Zamazenta loves Victor enough to do it for him again. But it is, okay, maybe go for Astral instead. Split some damage, but it doesn't actually damage the Smeargle at all.
Exactly, yeah. I think if you're going for Astral, you're hoping for enough damage to knock out the Landorus. I don't think it gets the one-hit knockout, but if it actually managed to pull it off, you actually probably win the game off it. No Protect from Landorus. Here we go.
Okay.
Does Life Orb Astral Barrage do enough? I don't think it will, but let's see.
This Landorus is already going to be taking so much damage, but it hangs on with just enough to fire off an attack on this turn. Zamazenta takes its mandatory turn of sleep, so there is a potential for it to wake up later, but it has to take this Earth Power first. It brings it down to half HP, and the Spore now into the Shadow Rider Calyrex. Both Pokemon asleep here for Victor. You don't want them asleep at this point in time.
Oh, this is so close, but Hirofumi has to be careful about where the damage is coming from, right? Especially if your final Pokemon is going to be that Incineroar. Landorus is going to be the primary carry here. One turn of sleep burnt. I think if you get max turns of sleep here on both Pokemon, you probably win this. And so Victor right now is praying, please let me wake up.
Follow me on the Smeargle to protect this Landorus for one more turn in case there is a wake up from the Zamazenta. The Calyrex is going to be the one that takes its mandatory turn of sleep first, and then we will see the Zamazenta actually takes a second one. So another Earth Power here is gonna.
Oh, it doesn't KO!
It finishes it off, but it doesn't!
Oh my goodness! That makes it so much scarier for Hirofumi. That's one more opportunity, of course, to get the wake up. It's one turn of sleep on Calyrex, 2 on the Zamazenta now. And you are slower with this Landorus, and so I think that was honestly a really, really crucial survival. Could have been a Sandsteer Store coming out there, which would have done some damage onto the Shadow Rider as well, but I think Hirofumi was like, look, I'm just trying to get the knockout.
On this next turn, though, the Shadow Rider Calyrex has a chance to wake up. The Zamazenta has an even greater chance to do so. And this Landorus wants to try to get as much value out of this next turn as possible. It does not get any more intense than this, Aaron, because the Smeargle could even go for something like a Spiky Shield if it wanted to, but it goes for the Follow Me. And we will see if this Calyrex can wake up.
Oh, it doesn't! Asleep.
But can the Zamazenta actually do it now? Follow it up with some amounts of damage, and it doesn't! What the heck? Zamazenta stays asleep.
This is what I was saying. If you get 3 turns of sleep on both, I think that's it. Shadow Rider, of course, still has the chance to wake up, but Zamazenta will faint. And if Hirofumi's last Pokemon, of course, is that Incineroar, that is a really nice Pokemon to have into Shadow Rider, especially with Water Terra having already been committed on the Zamazenta. So really, really tough sleep rolls there for Victor. Makes it so scary, and this is what I was saying coming into the match. If you get a crucial Spore off, and it makes such a big difference. Still not over yet, but the Smeargle is still at full HP.
Really has its work cut out for it, but you hopefully can just like get rid of that. You gotta get rid of the Pokesash. The Smeargle's gotta go. You gotta get rid of the Pokesash. You gotta get rid of it once and for all. But Hirofumi still has that mystery 4th Pokemon in the back that you could switch in at any moment, and it's going to be now. Landorus stays preserved for later, as we see it is going to be that Incineroar coming to hit the field.
Yeah, and this is just so tough now. I think this is a super safe play. You can switch in Spiky Shield with your Smeargle like so. Now, how in the world does Shadow Rider beat this Incineroar, right? So Hirofumi recognizes, look, my Landorus hung on. I can just one-shot the Incineroar in the end game. Let me make sure it does not go down here. I'm not going to risk the chance of a wake-up here from the Shadow Rider. Shadow Rider wakes up, but as you see, the Landorus pivoted out, crucially making sure that you get to preserve that for the Incineroar endgame. Astral Barrage Knob comes out, but Hirofumi's got a huge advantage now. You can feel his 2nd Worlds trophy in his hands.
Victor, though, has been so close to a crown before. It would feel devastating to fall short here, but the faith is not gone.
It's not gone yet.
It's not gone yet. You still have Pokemon that are able to battle it out with you. And maybe this Incineroar is able to help squeak out just a bit more damage. And this Protect, can it actually bait out a couple of attacks from these other Pokemon?
Yeah, I think basically what Victor's hoping for is maybe I get the Flare Blitz, get you low enough where then Astral Barrage can finish you off. Flare Blitz here, it can burn the Smeargle. And it actually survives. You know, it burns, but because of all the defense that it had gotten, it actually hangs on crucially.
Aaron, I thought for a quick second there, yeah. If the burn damage had ticked through the focus sash activating, I didn't know exactly what you were talking about. But it does stick around, and with enough HP that, I mean, you are just going to be able to redirect away another attack. You get a defense boost again on top of the defense that you already have. And so it will take this next Flare Blitz to do the job.
No double protect.
The double protect would have been so big for the Shadow Rider Calyrex to be able to make it through something like a knockoff, but it's not going to be able to get that. So you see the knockoff gets that basically one-hit knockout onto the Calyrex, and Hirofumi Kimura, one Pokemon left to make another top 4 appearance here at the World Championships. And it doesn't even get the knockout after the second Flare Blitz. You gotta see the burn damage to it.
Oh, that's adding some insult to injury there. The fact that we saw Smeargle take 2 Flare Blitzes is wild, but of course, we've got Landers now out from Hirofumi in the back. How clutch was it that it survived that Astral Barrage? If Landers faints there, the game, I think, just ends basically on the spot, but the sleep rolls going in Hirofumi's favor. This was such an intense battle, and this game could have totally gone the other way. I mean, we saw turn 1, Smeargle versus Smeargle going for the Spores as well, right? And Victor fought so hard here. I feel like he made the right plays, but Earth Power comes out, and that'll be it.
Wow, and just like that, Hirofumi Kimura is able